Parenting is hard, but this is easy. Listen to Stroller Coaster, hosted by Lynn Smith, a mom and former news anchor for NBC, and co-hosted by an improv comedian. And it's a place to be entertained and to laugh over crazy parenting moments and to learn something new. Stroller Coaster was voted Best Branded Podcast 2024 by Digiday, and Stroller Coaster is created by Munchkin, the most loved baby lifestyle brands in the world. I just got done listening to their transitions episode and I really resonated with it. And I just loved how they were talking about kids really needing to have that connection piece before we can expect them to follow directions or to transition easily or to get their shoes on, get out of the door, get in the car. I just felt so seen as a toddler mom. And this season, they're talking about things that we really all should be talking about, like how to stay connected with our kids once they're in daycare, how to hold on to your patience as a parent, why kids are so obsessed with snacking, and the hilarious but important process of making friends with other parents. So follow Stroller Coaster on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure you leave them a rating and review. Welcome to No One Told Us, the podcast that tells the truth about parenting and talks about all the stuff you wish you knew before having kids. I'm your host, Rachael, and today I'm really excited to be speaking with Fareedah Shaheed, an award-winning internet safety expert and Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree. She specializes in helping parents protect their kids online through background in cybersecurity awareness, threat intelligence, and online gaming. And her work has been featured in NBC, CNN, The Wall Street Journal, Fortune, NASDAQ, Yahoo, you name it. I'm so excited to have you today, Fareedah, because this is a topic that is just so important and it feels like it's getting more and more important in my own life as my kids get a little bit older. I don't know. I feel like sometimes the online world is starting to change a little bit, right? Like there's all of these parenting experts out there and influencers and all types of people sharing family content. And the conversation is starting to become a little more open now with, should we really be doing this? Should we really be showing this? So I really appreciate you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Rachael. I appreciate you.
So I am a content creator. I specialize in content that has to do with little kids and my own family. And over the years, I've kind of started to pull back on what I will share and what I will show because I'm so aware of the safety implications. So I'd really like to dive in and talk to you about that today. But before we start, I would kind of just you're so accomplished. I would love to hear how you became interested in this topic and just like how you got started with your amazing platform.
I love to say I was lovingly forced into what I'm doing today. So I grew up as a gamer online, talking to strangers, doing everything my mother specifically told me not to do, right? Don't tell your name, don't share where you live, don't share your picture. And I was doing everything because I was just like, I don't want to say rebellious teen, but I just was a rebellious teen essentially. And I always was fascinated with technology. And so when I went to college, that was my degree. And I changed it eventually to cybersecurity because there's just a lot of talk about it. My dad was like, you're going to be good in cybersecurity. It's not a new field, but new in terms of degrees and education. And then once I got into that, I got an internship. And inside of my job, I started speaking to people about security and safety of passwords, all like the things that make you want to go to sleep. And then as I was talking, I had a lot of parents who were obviously in the audience and they were asking me questions about social media, posting kids, what not to post online. Because also I worked in the threat intelligence team. So we're watching what predators are doing, what cyber criminals are doing, how they're hacking families, how they're tracking families through Facebook. And so I started answering more of those questions. And then based off of my own experience as a kid, I would say, okay, well, your kids may be doing this, and this is impacting their safety or your safety. And so that's kind of like how I started creating content about this. I didn't want to create content online. I'm a very open person, but also very private. But I am also a content creator. So I actually had to go through my own, like, what am I going to post online? Am I going to post my mother? Am I going to post my grandmother? I don't have kids. I don't plan on having kids. But I love kids. I love families. And so I'm always thinking about what would I do or what should you or should you not do based off of my professional experience.
Right. That's so helpful. So there's like kind of two conversations that I would love to have. So one would be from the perspective of a parent, how should we share our kids? Should we just not share them at all? What are the types of things we need to be thinking about? And then maybe a little bit later, we could also talk to those families who do have kids that are coming to the age of using technology themselves and how we keep them safe when they are engaging with tech, because that's another huge conversation right now, especially with some recent books and stuff that have come out about like social media and
anxiety around it.
Yeah. So I'd love to kind of get to that. But first, I would love to just hear your like quick answer. Should we be sharing our kids online?
It's so hard in this field. You really can't give quick answers. I always say, number one, in all the foundations, quickly, it is you are the expert in your child and your gut feeling rules all. So no matter what I say, no matter what other experts say, no matter what books you read, you know yourself, you know your family, you know your child. That's number one. So I would say make an informed decision based off of you and your gut feeling and knowing your child, and then research that is out there. And then you make the decision that's best for you and your family. There's never a one size fits all. For some people, it's absolutely never share your kids. Other people is you share a little bit. Other people, you share a lot in terms of what is normal for other people, but you're very careful and selective with what you share and how you share it and when you share it. So I would say it's a very roundabout answer. So I can't really say yes or no.
No, I appreciate the nuance, because I think a lot of people probably are thinking like, oh, I should just never show them. It's probably best to just not show anything ever. Sometimes that also doesn't feel realistic. Like, we're living far away from family and people love to share their kids because they're adorable, right? They're cute. Right. They're doing funny stuff. Like, I totally get it. Yeah. I guess my next question would be, how do you know? You mentioned research, right? So yes, you know your kid, you know your family, you know maybe what your personal comfort level is, you know your general circle. But, you know, what is the research saying about content about kids online? Like, what should parents really be aware of to make that informed decision?
I mean, right now we only know short-term consequences because we haven't had very long to see the effects of it. In this day and age, we've had, of course, I mean, Facebook's been around for a bit. The internet's been around for a bit. Forums have been around for a bit. So we know the general what's happening with people who grew up with parents that share too much. Mm-hmm. But I mean, this oversharing has been going on for generations, right? Like, you know, it's like 70 years ago, a parent is talking to another parent over coffee, and they're oversharing about their child's life. And now the entire neighborhood knows, and now your business is out there. So it's really being cognizant of what will impact your child and what will impact from the long term. So it could be you have a private profile. Because I talk to a lot of parents who are like, oh, I never have to worry about this. I'm not an influencer. I'm a content creator. I have a private profile. I only share with my friends and family. I'm good. And I'm like, actually, and I give this story about a predator who hacked into a girl's Snapchat account. She never posted anything publicly. Her parents never posted everything publicly, and they thought they were safe. He took her pictures, and this is a trigger warning if this feels like too much, like absolutely. But he took her pictures and made it as if she didn't have any clothes on. And then based off of her conversation with her friends and family, figured out where she went to school and the general area and where she lived. Mm-hmm. And he was using that to extort her to say, if you don't send me money, I'm going to send this altered picture that looks very real, because it was like a very innocent picture of her in a bikini with friends at the beach. Like, it was super sweet and innocent. And he took that and he was like, I will share with all your friends and family, and no one's going to know this was an innocent picture. And so this threat exists for everybody. Even if, let's say, you've never shared a picture or anything remotely that could possibly be altered in a different way, we now have AI. Right. Where it can take a picture of your face and put it on a different body. And it will say that it looks like your body. It looks like it's connected to it. It looks completely real. It's like they're basically photoshopping it, right? And so I say there's always going to be a way around something, but you want to lessen the chances as much as humanly possible. We all have things in our daily lives that we do that put us a little bit more at risk than other things, but we have to decide what is the greater good or the greater harm in what I'm doing. And so if you have a private profile, are you changing your passwords? Do you have a good password? Are you using a password manager? Are you using two-factor authentication? Did you change the password on your Wi-Fi? Like, those are things you want to think about. So don't take yourself out of the conversation and then start judging other people because they're posting their kids online, right? We can all judge each other. So number one, don't judge yourself, because we all have things to work on. And give yourself some grace and love and appreciation for even listening to this podcast and having this conversation and thinking about it. That's a huge step. So the next step is, what is your goals and what are your kids' goals, and what can you realistically do in your life to upgrade your security? That's what I would be thinking about. I wouldn't be thinking about all the wrong things that can happen. I just gave that example for parents who feel like, I'm checked out of the conversation, I never post my kids online.
Right, exactly.
I don't want you to check out. Yeah.
Okay, you just brought up something that I wasn't even thinking about, actually, because what I was thinking, I hear that argument all the time too, where it's, parents who think they're safe, they're fine because they have a private profile. And what I would push back on would be that a lot of times child predators are people that you know.
Correct.
Actually, like most times. So that's just also something to always be aware of, that a predator isn't always some scary stranger. It could be somebody that you know very well, somebody that's in your family that is using the images that you're sharing of your child. What would be the next steps for, like you mentioned, changing passwords? Are there other things that parents should be aware of to make sure that they're secure?
You can use like Google Photos, right? You can use certain photo apps and share it with specific people. I know sometimes when you're sharing with your mom, she's so excited and she shares it to her Facebook friends, or shares with other people, and then your great aunt is sharing it with other people. You really can't control that. You have to decide what is more important to you and what's more likely to happen. So if you really have a mother-in-law or a mother or a father or a brother or whoever who has either malicious intent or they don't have malicious intent, they just you can't get through to them in terms of the impact of technology, then that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, that's like
I was gonna say, share your tips for talking to mother-in-laws, please.
Right. I'm like, I have that in one of the courses that I created, but that's very nuanced. It's very challenging. That is like when you get into your family therapist, counselor. That's literally, I put links to therapists. I was like, links.
Perfect. All the therapy.
Right. And so I'm so sure there's like podcast episodes, like they'll help you with this as well. So moving forward, notwithstanding that conversation, definitely thinking about what is best for you and your family. I have to remember your original question. I feel like I'm going off the rails.
No, you're not. I was just asking if there are things that we should do. And I want to ask you about specific pictures next. But as far as locking down your accounts and making sure everything is as secure as possible, is it really just keeping your passwords secure, or are there certain programs we should be using?
Yeah, so I really love 1Password. It's the #1password.com. Go there, get a family account, and it will create passwords for you and manage it for you. So this is not an advertisement for them. I'm not sponsored by them. I just like them. So, but one day we'll do a part of it. We're in conversation. It's been for a bit. So
1Password, call her, please.
Right, call me. Anyways, let's continue our conversations. But anyways, so using something like 1Password, it's actually going to be easier for you to manage your passwords and your kids' passwords, and teaching your kids to do the same. That's one of the biggest things, because predators know that you're not managing your passwords.
Right.
And that's how they're able to get into your Facebook accounts. They're getting your email account. Your email is one of the most dangerous accounts they could ever reach. So because it gives them access to your bank account and your social media and your family and your tax documents and tax returns and finances and investments and assets. So you have to be very careful about those accounts. So I would get 1Password. It creates passwords for you, manages it for you. You don't have to think about anything except the 1Password.
Amazing. And then I guess this might be dense of me because I'm really not a tech person at all. What happens if somebody then hacks into 1Password, or is it much more protected?
Yeah, it's much more protected. It's very different. So even if they were to get in, they can't really see anything because it's a very challenging process for them to even get in. Okay. So for instance, if they hack into the company's side, most likely they're going to be able to access the company's resources, but the company can't even access your password. So that's why they always say that you have essentially one key to unlock your vault of passwords.
Got it.
So if you lose your key, no one can save you.
Okay.
The company will not be able to. Right, you're done. The company can't even get into the vault. So you're the only one who has access to it. Now, if you have a predator or hacker that has access to your key and then your second key and then your computer, then you actually have bigger problems in your password because they're in your house or they have control over everything.
Right.
So now your passwords are the least of your worries. You're thinking about your kids' safety, your family's safety. Now it's bigger than that. So if they have access to that, you have bigger things to worry about.
You explained that very well. Thank you. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to hear about the types of photos that we really should just never be sharing of kids. We'll be right back. Let's be honest, going grocery shopping is not always super fun. And a lot of the options at our local grocery stores are just not as healthy as I would like them to be. That's why I love using Thrive Market. It's like having a personal guide to healthier living for my entire family. We've been using Thrive for years and years, and we absolutely love that they have trusted, family-friendly brands, and you don't have to spend hours in the grocery store. We love using Thrive for our pantry staples. We love the Thrive brand coffee. We always have that on stock. We get all of our kids' lunchbox snacks and just all of the high protein options that my husband and I love to get us fueled up and feeling good. Instead of things like sugar-packed snacks for the kids, we love brands like Simple Mills crackers, Annie's mac and cheese, Chomp's beef sticks, and Lesser Evil popcorn. Plus, you get them all at such a great price. And I've also found so many new brands that I never would have heard of or seen before in our local grocery stores. If you're ready for a junk-free start to 2025, head to thrivemarket.com/HeySleepyBaby. Get 30% off your first order plus a free $60 gift. That's Thrive, THRIVE market.com/HeySleepyBaby. thrivemarket.com/HeySleepyBaby. We're at the start of a new year, and I know so many people, when January or February roll around, they're like, okay, I am ready to get my nutrition locked in for this year. You want to be healthy, you want to feel good, and Factor is one really easy way to get towards your fitness goals. Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well so easy. They're dietitian approved, and they're ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what you have going on in your schedule. You're crazy busy with kids and work and driving here and there, but you can take just a couple of minutes to heat up and eat a delicious, healthy Factor meal. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared. It's perfect for any busy lifestyle. There's over 40 options, so you never get bored. I personally always love the chicken and pasta recipes, whereas my husband loves their steaks. They're honestly restaurant quality taste. They are so delicious and so filling. So you can eat smart with Factor by getting started at factormeals.com/no-one-told-us-50-off. Use code no-one-told-us-50-off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code no-one-told-us-50-off at factormeals.com/no-one-told-us-50-off to get 50% off your order plus free shipping for your first box. Okay, Fareedah, we're back, and I love how you are just so judgment-free about this. I know a lot of people feel very passionate about protecting kids online, and they tend to take a hardline stance like never do it. Again, it doesn't feel realistic to a lot of people. So what are some things, though, that you would recommend just never sharing? It's not worth it. Don't ever post this type of picture of your kid.
Well, I'm going to start with the one that's most talked about and is actually the most important before I go into the other ones. The other ones are very important, but this one is the most, is your kids being okay with it.
Yeah.
Because that will impact your relationship with your kid. And when that is impacted to a degree where there's consistent mistrust, then you're going to have a hard time in all areas of life, including protecting your kids from predators and protecting them online. Mm-hmm. So the best case is when you are deep down okay with what you posted and you've talked to your kid about it. I would start at the age of at least like 7 years old is when you start having those conversations for real. Before then, you can just say, hey, I'm sharing this picture. And they're like 5, 6 years, they don't know, like with grandma and your aunt and uncles. And then they're like, okay, they don't really care. We're like, oh, I don't want that. But you're just getting in the habit of saying it to them. It's not that they may understand the ramifications. It's just that you're in the habit of asking them for permission, so that once they reach 10, 12, 13, they're already in the habit. And if you have not done that, then you can go back to the conversation and say, hey, I recently listened to this podcast, or I was thinking about it. And I remember I hate it when my mom talked to her friends about things that happened to me in school. And I was just realizing that this information I was posting about you feels the same way. Do you feel the same way, or you just don't care? And then they might say like, oh, I don't care. Or actually, no, I actually been hating it for my entire life. Like, please take it down, right? So you can have those conversations. And then that's number one, is just making sure they're okay with it. And the step from that is nothing that will embarrass them or impact them later in life.
Right.
So you don't want to give out information to the public where if your child becomes a content creator or an influencer, or they're trying to go for a job, or they're trying to be, I don't know, get into politics or whatever it is, or they just simply just don't want someone knowing that information, that it would impact them. So those are like the first two most important ones.
That is so important. Yeah. And I think it's hard because people don't assume that babies are people and that, you know, toddlers, like they can't consent yet. And so I think that's really tricky for people, is because when you're a mom, it's like your baby feels like an extension of you almost, and they're not, they're their own person. And so I've had to really like think about it in a different way as I've gotten a bigger page and a bigger following and stuff like that. Like, do I really need to be showing this? Is this something that would embarrass them later? And, you know, I'm on TikTok too. And sometimes I just am so disgusted with the things that people share about their kids. It's like they're showing their kids have tantrums or showing their kids covered in feces, thinking it's funny. That it's awful. So thank you so much for bringing that up. So what are the next things as far as things that we should just not do?
Well, anything that reveals your location. So if you, and sometimes it's innocent. So you might say like every Sunday we go to like Freddy's ice cream, you know? And so now someone knows every Sunday I can expect them at this time to be at Freddy's ice cream. And then some people say, oh, I never post my kids. I just like post about my routines. But I know that you go to yoga at 10 a.m. Or I know that you are getting your coffee at this time, or you're going to lunch with your kids, not kids, but your friends at this time, or whatever it is. So I'm knowing your family schedule because of that. Even when you're on vacation, like posting after you've come back from the vacation, after you've left the hotel. You don't want to in real time say, I'm staying at the Hilton. You want to, after you leave, you want to say, oh, I have stayed at this hotel and now I'm back and I really loved my experience. So just being mindful, even different. Sometimes it feels like, oh, I'm just standing in front of this Target, but I can tell this Target is connected to a Starbucks and you're in Minnesota and there's only 5 Starbucks at Targets that are connected to that. And then I knew that you said that you went to this area, so that means you're close to here. And there is this content creator, Jose Monkey, on TikTok and on YouTube. I highly recommend parents watch his videos with your kids, so that you and your child can see how easy it is for someone to track you. Even if there's nothing behind you, they can figure out where you are. Wow. So if you want to, just really being careful about the location that you take pictures of.
Such a good point. I saw a Reddit thread about me one time. It was people basically trying to figure out where my daughter goes to preschool. And they were using reference points from videos that I had filmed years ago, like in my car. And they were trying to basically guess the neighborhood based on that. And I was just like, wow. Like, and these are moms. Like, these aren't, you know, these are moms that like hate follow me. If they are that determined to get this information just because they're bored, I can only imagine what a predator would do and be able to figure out. Right. So yeah, you can't be too careful with that kind of thing.
And you can use green screens too. So if you're creating content, like if you're in the car, use a green screen. I've done that too, where I use green screens, or like a plain wall where no one sees. I never take a picture of like outside where my house is or anything. And honestly, some people that I feel so bad for them. They're like food content creators. They're moms. They're making snacks for their kids. Some people figured out where they lived based off of the style of their video, because they said, oh, I'm in an apartment building in like San Francisco. And someone's like, oh my God, I know that exact layout. I used to live in that apartment building. Here's exactly where she lives. So if you have a huge following, you have to be even more careful about it, because like you said, people make Reddit threads. They're in your own comment section, like trying to figure out where you are. So being careful. Yeah.
For people that aren't content creators then, and it's just, you know, regular moms that are sharing on their regular private Instagram page or their Facebook pages, what are some types of images that you wouldn't want to share aside from location-based images?
Okay, so next is anything where they're like, they don't have clothes on, or they partially don't have any clothes on. And I know it's so super innocent, bath time photos, swimwear photos, they just born, like newborn photos, but being really careful about that, especially in mommy groups and Facebook groups, because anywhere where kids are or moms are, there are going to be predators, because they know that parents feel more comfortable in a closed Facebook group. Even in my own Facebook group, I'm like, unless it's like my membership group where you're paid to be there, I don't know who these people are. Yeah. And so they have to answer a couple of questions. If I don't like your profile, I'm going to like decline you from the group. But some people have like, it seems like their profile looks great, right? Like you said, predators come in all shapes and forms. So just being careful about what you're posting, even in these supposedly you wish that it was a safe space, but it's actually not. So being careful about those type of photos too. And then your child's full name, like the full government name, the first name, middle name, last name, hyphenated name, nickname. And there is a debate on whether or not you put the birthdays or not. It's better not to put it, but that's a judgment call, to be honest, because a lot of those is just really public information about the birthday. And especially if you can give a fake birthday if you want, like every year you give 1 week after the birthday or 1 week before or 2 days before. If you want to, you can do that. And that's up to you, but definitely not the full government name.
Okay, so we're talking a little bit about how to keep kids safe as a parent, and we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I do want to get into a little bit of how to keep kids safe once they are online. So we will take a quick break and be right back. If you're concerned with your child's or even your own eating habits, don't wait to reach out for help. Equip is a virtual evidence-based eating disorder treatment program that can help your child heal while staying at home. Built by experts in the field, Equip provides your family with a dedicated care team that can include a medical provider, therapist, dietitian, and peer and family mentors who have been through the recovery process and provide you with extra support. Equip can treat all types of eating disorders and is covered by insurance, and it has no wait list, so you don't have to wait to get the support you deserve. I have personal experience with this company. My sister works for Equip and has had nothing but just absolutely amazing things to say about their program and just how easy and accessible it makes treatment for families. So you can start your treatment journey at equip.health/sleepybaby to get a free consultation from Equip. That's equip.health/sleepybaby, and it's Equip, EQUIP.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
Okay, so we are talking about all things internet safety and security. This has been a really hot topic recently, something that I think about because my oldest is about to be 7, so I definitely don't want to get him on any technology anytime soon. I'm waiting as long as possible, but it is something that I'm thinking about because he's in public school and, you know, there are kids that have their own devices, right? So what are your thoughts on that as far as when is it age appropriate for kids to have their own devices? When is it appropriate for them to be gaming online with other people, and how do we keep them safe?
Whew. So the #1 rule is wait as long as possible, just like you said. Like kudos to that. As long as you could humanly possibly, like just wait. Like 16 is a great age.
Yeah, I didn't get a phone until I was 16, and I'm fine.
Right, exactly. Right. I got it at 13, but I got on social media at 16. And so 16 is great because it gives them a couple of years to manage their device while they're still in the house and they have a little bit more responsibility.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wait. And I know some people like to. I wouldn't wait. Generally, I would not advise to wait until 18 because now they're like kid in the candy shop and they have the phone on their own and they're doing whatever they want, however they want. And there isn't like a grace period where they can fail safely, so to speak. So you want them to be in a space where they can fail safely. Okay. So 16 is a good age in general. But for some kids, they're super mature, super responsible. They're like the head of this, head of that, running this, running that, and they may need a phone at 14 years old. So every child is different. Again, it definitely depends on your family. There are certain questions you want to ask yourself because I base everything off my SAFE method: safe spaces, accountability, fun, and empathy. So in order to see whether or not you should give your child a phone, there's certain questions you ask yourself and of your child to see if they're ready. And you want to just gauge their responsibility. Are they going to lose the phone? You're going to have to keep replacing it. Is a watch better? And speaking of watches, we don't have time to go too deep into this, but I would stay away from watches that are labeled as kid smart watches. Because typically they come from companies that don't have good security and safety. And so I would stick to watches from companies that essentially know what they're doing.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I would think the opposite, that like something marketed to kids would be extra safe, but maybe that's not the case.
Well, I mean, with my background in cybersecurity, it gives me a different perspective. Like same with parental control apps. A lot of parental control apps have been hacked before. They've released kids' location data, pictures, voice messages, videos, exactly where they went to school, their full names, passwords. And so think of it like this. If you're monitoring your kids through an app, why couldn't a predator do the same?
Whoa. Yeah.
So these predators are very tech savvy. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And even if they're not, there are a plethora of YouTube videos that they can pull up to figure out how to get into your account or how to get into the company account and release millions. So there have been like 3 apps that have been hacked before and have released millions of information. There's MSpy, Teen Safe, and Family Orbit. Those 3 have leaked millions collectively of kids' data, unfortunately. MSpy the most of all the others. They've been hacked 3 different times and released millions every single time. So just being mindful of that, that's a huge, huge thing.
Wow. Okay. So now I understand why you say it's easier and simpler to just wait as long as possible so you don't have to deal with any of this.
Right.
I have seen those newer phones. I guess they're new, but kind of old. They're like, they only will call or they'll only text. They're kind of like an old school flip phone. What about those?
Those can be good. I mean, if you're really big on parental controls, then that won't help you because most of them don't have parental controls. It's just controlled phone, but there's no parental control.
Got it.
So if you want parental control, that may not be best. But if you don't need parental control, so essentially you're pretty sure that your kid is not going to be getting some random stranger's name and texting them, then that's fine. I mean, my mom was pretty sure I was not going to do that, and I did that. That's a whole other discussion. That's a whole other podcast thing.
Yeah.
Yep. But like, you really feel like, no, I really just need to pick them up from soccer practice. Then you do what you need to do. I always say, what's the greater good and what's the greater bad? Like, what's the overall? Do you really believe that someone may be hacking into the phone? If you don't believe that could happen and there is no evidence that this company has been through something and you feel confident with it, which is why I made a whole list of like unsafe apps and parental controls and smartwatches and the whole 9 yards, because if a company is not on that list, you can be like, okay, they haven't had an incident yet. And so I already bought this. I'm just going to use the product. And if I see that Fareedah says something happened, then I'll drop it for another company. If I'm still in the midst of making a decision, I'll just make a decision of a better company that hasn't had these issues. So I don't want, after this conversation, for everyone to be hyperventilating and thinking that, oh my God, I made the wrong choices. It's all about what's best for you and what works for you at this moment. So if let's say you're using MSpy and you just got it and you haven't signed up, then use something else, right? Use like Apple parental controls, use Google Family Safety, like all the Microsoft Family Safety, Google Family Link, whatever you want to use. But if you're already in the thick of it, then I would say something different. I would say get monitoring for your child's information online and your information online, or scrub your information. And real quick, you can scrub some of your information online using Optery, Optery. I believe that's the company. Also not sponsored by them, but I use them. They're great. And anytime information about you or your kids pop up online, it can scrub it from the internet immediately without you having to do anything.
Oh my God. I'm going to get on that as soon as we're done with this. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's so good.
Okay, amazing. I love that. I'm definitely not thinking about my kids being on social media anytime soon or having their own phones anytime soon because they're still so little. But there are other things that I think a lot of parents don't think about as far as like using YouTube unsupervised or video games unsupervised, other things like that that could expose them to not just predators, but expose them to some really unsafe content. So what are some tips that you can give us there for things that start out as age appropriate, but then they can quickly turn?
Because I scared everyone enough, that's one. And because we don't have time to talk for like 3 hours, I will give what I believe, like if you were to do, I like to give advice that's big domino effect. So if you were to do this one thing, it would take care of a lot of other things until you can get to those things. Because I already know you're overwhelmed and stressed and it's too much. So number one is, as much as humanly possible, giving your child the safest space for them to open up and tell you anything and everything, no matter what. And they feel comfortable that you are not going to punish them or overreact or yell at them or scream at them or look at them differently or judge them because of it. Mm-hmm. And when you have a reaction, because you will have a reaction, you're not a robot, you're not a perfect human being, no one is. When you have a reaction, you come back and you apologize and you explain why. And you say, I did this because of this, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I'm going to try to do it differently. I was just very afraid for your safety. And so hopefully we can have a conversation again. I'm so happy that you came, you talked to me about this.
Yeah.
That's so important. And actually, the more that you make mistakes and apologize, the bigger your trust gets. It's not like it goes smaller, it actually goes bigger.
Yep.
So give yourself grace when you make mistakes. Mistakes are perfect for kids because they realize, one, my parent is not like a perfect human being. I have permission to not be a perfect human being. And then I know that if I come to my parent not being a perfect human being, they're not going to fully judge me for it because they were imperfect in front of me. And that's exactly what you want. Because what predators love is on video games, on social media, is they love kids who can't talk to their parents.
Yeah.
Kids who feel as though
they want
that
them isolated.
Exactly. They want them isolated, and they want to give them that fun in the safe method. They want to give them that fun in a safe spaces that your child feels like they're not getting from you. Mm-hmm. And no, you saying I love you to your child, it feels like it counts, but your child is like, like they don't. The food being on the table every day. They went to after school summer camp. No, it's those little tiny moments that you have with them that matters the most in terms of protecting them online. I'm not saying don't say I love you or don't feed your kids. Like, obviously do.
Those things are good too.
Right. Those are good too. Like, please do that. But in terms of like giving them that safety, and one of the best ways you can give your kids safety is by feeling safe within yourself. So going to therapy yourself, dealing with your own inner child, talking to them nicely, holding space for them, the mistakes that you made in your life, you giving yourself grace. Because when you give yourself that space for your own self, it becomes easier or simpler, not easier. It's always going to be challenging, but simpler to give that space to your child. I highly recommend following, I like her account. I don't know anything about her personally, but Dr. Nicole LaPera, the holistic psychologist. I love her Instagram account. She has amazing resources on your inner child, meditations for your inner child, thinking about how you're reacting to yourself and your partner and your kids and life. So start with that, and that will protect your kids from predators on no matter what device they're on.
I've got to say, that's not what I thought you were going to say at all, but I love that because that is such a huge piece, that trust. There is a good chance that if your child is online, they're going to come across something that they shouldn't at some point, right? And for them to be able to have that safe space to talk to us about it is so helpful. And also, I think, am I wrong in saying that having them be supervised when they're really little and like not getting just open-ended iPad time to cruise around the internet and do whatever they want, like that's probably a good thing to do too, right?
Yeah, I balance both. Like there are times where you can supervise and naturally in life that you can't. You're doing something else. You're doing a different activity. So those are the times where you can put in your brain that I'm giving them free play or free reign. And then you're reining it back in by having those conversations with them, because the best monitoring is knowing yourself and knowing your child.
Totally. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been so helpful and so eye-opening. Thank you so much. You mentioned a bunch of things if parents want to learn more. So you mentioned a list of some things that you have. I know you have a Protect Kids Online resource library for these topics. Where can people find you and all of your amazing resources? CyberFareedah.com or on social media, CyberFareedah. So even if you Google CyberFareedah, everything will come up. My website will come up, my social media will come up. And then from there, you'll get all the lists and information and everything you need. And you can contact me. So if you had any questions and you're confused about anything I said in the podcast episode, message me on Instagram. That's the best platform. Okay, awesome. I'll put all that in the show notes too to make it just super easy for people to find. Perfect. I appreciate you so much. Thank you and have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Are you a parent in need of a laugh and a little escape? Look no further. Parenting is a Joke is the podcast you've been waiting for. Hey, I'm Ophira Eisenberg. I'm a stand-up comic and parent. And each week I chat with one of my top comedian pals who, just like you, are juggling careers, busy lives and schedules, and raising a family. You can expect candid stories, hilarious mishaps that happen on stage and at home, and just a lot of laughs. There's no expert advice here. Well, actually, sometimes a good idea does sneak its way in, but mostly just pure, relatable fun to remind you that we're all in this parenting adventure together. New episodes of Parenting is a Joke drop every Tuesday, so tune in, get ready to laugh, unwind, and maybe even feel a little bit better about your own parenting. Because sometimes that's exactly what your therapist, pediatrician, and bartender ordered. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform.